Hi, thank you. Thank you for joining me. You are watching the live stream of the May 2020 Quilted Joy Clubhouse, and I am so glad that you are here. I'm so thankful that you chose to spend a little time with me. I've got a lot of great things planned to talk to you about, and I know that we got started just a little bit late, so thanks for your patience. I have to say we miss you guys. We miss having our customers come into the shop. We miss seeing your smiling faces. And we're just so happy that we have a place like this that we can gather and make sure everybody's doing okay and kind of seeing what you're up to and what's under your needle there in the clubhouse. So I appreciate you being a part of our community, and I just wish that I could hug on you in 3D, but we'll have to make this work for the time being. So I guess we should let some people file in, or if you would just in the comments put like what city you're in, where you're from on there, where you're watching from. It kind of helps us to see how far flung we have people watching. We are fortunate enough we have people watching from all over the world watching this video. And just that you know too, we've been doing this now for over a year, and we have all of the previous recordings up on our YouTube channel. So if you have missed some of the past episodes, you can go back on our YouTube channel and you can watch any of the months that you missed. And they're all up there ready for you to enjoy and take advantage of. So do we have folks coming in, Rachel?
Yep, we have Sue from Idaho Falls.
Hi, Sue.
We have Carmela.
Carmela. It's great to see everybody kind of file in.
We have Vicki from Kansas.
Hey, Vicki.
We have Cindy from Phoenix, Arizona.
Cindy from Phoenix.
And from Westchester, Ohio.
Oh, good. Westchester, Ohio is not that far away.
We have Janet from Tennessee.
Awesome. Tennessee, Janet.
Marie from North Carolina.
Marie from North Carolina. Marie, I used to work in a place called Montreat. In college, I taught pottery outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and Montreat. So North Carolina is one of my favorite places on the planet. I really enjoy the mountains.
Anybody else? Yeah, we have Deb from California.
Deb from California. It's early in California. I guess it's not that early, but yeah. Yeah, it's not that early, but still, it's much earlier than here. Kathy from Michigan? Mm-hmm. Awesome. It's fun to see how many people kind of gather together, and it's nice to talk about our favorite topic, kind of leave our worries behind. So I'm just thankful that you chose to be here with me today. And I do want to make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter. On our newsletter, we send out any information. We remind you about the clubhouse meetings. We include any links to any specials that we're having, as well as we always include some fun links in the website, in the newsletter, to some cool things we found online that we think you'll find interesting as well. So do make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter. And I also just want to thank everyone. We have been taking a lot of action here at the shop to keep everybody safe and to isolate employees so that we can continue to fill orders, but do it in the safest way possible. And I want to thank you. We've had so many people support this little small business by continuing to put orders in with us, and we are filling those orders, most of them within 24 hours, and getting them shipped out. So we've been working really hard to keep up with our shipping schedule, and I just thank you so much for supporting us and for continuing on with your orders. We're a small little woman-powered company here in Kentucky, and you're making a difference for us. So thank you for that. And I also want to thank three special people to me, and that's Rachel and Kelsey and Melanie, because they have really stepped up and have helped in this uncertain time to keep things afloat and to keep you guys nurtured and cared for. And I just appreciate all of my quilt fairies who help keep things together. So I have a lot to be thankful for, and you're a part of that too. Okay, so today, well, last month we talked about quilting feathers on the outside of a curve and things to consider when you're placing feathers on the outside of a curve. So today we're going to talk about placing feathers on the inside of a curve, because it is a little trickier and there's some things that you want to kind of think about. And we're going to work with a particular kind of feather that may be a little bit, we're going to do the bump feather. Maybe you've heard of that before. I'll show you what that means. But there are loads of feathers out there. Just know there are dozens and dozens of kinds of feathers out there. So if this particular feather doesn't click with you, it's not your feather. You need to find your feather plume. So we're going to work with a bump feather today. Okay, so let's go to the computer here, and I'm just going to draw a spine. And for our purposes, I'm going to draw just like a little question mark spine. And we're going to work on putting feathers on the inside of this curve. And the thing about learning this skill, and this skill is going to take you some time to learn. So I want you to draw this on paper and draw and draw and draw and draw and draw. It's going to take a lot of practice. So don't be hard on yourself when you first start. And when I first started making feathers, they look like bratwurst. So it's going to take you time. It takes everybody's time. It's normal to take a lot of time. You're doing it right if it looks funky at first, because it's going to take you time to work the funk out and to get it to look good. So I've got my curve, and this is how you learn, by the way, to do feathers on a heart, a feathered wreath. It's this skill we're going to talk about. And what I want to do is I want to kind of eyeball the dead center of this circle. So if I imagine the circle like the face of a clock, I want to find the dead center of that circle. And I'm actually going to change my color here, I think, if I can. There it goes. And so I'm going to put a little dot here in the dead center. And I would physically do that on my quilt. I would put a dot there with some kind of marking device. And then I would get out some kind of stencil or some kind of ability to break down this, this area into little pie shapes. So I'm going to do it here. So there's my 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, my 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then I'm also going to break it down this way. And all this is doing is just kind of giving me some targets and guidelines as I move my feather around this inside curve. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my blue thread color here, and I'm going to start to work up and around this curve. And I'm going to start with a small feather plume first. So small feather plume first. And then I'm going to come around with my bump. So my bump is a little bigger, and it kisses the top of the head of the first little small one, and then I backtrack over the head of that taller one, and then I head back down to my spine. And my key is I really want to pay attention to where that feather comes into that spine and try to keep that at a 45-degree angle. As soon as I start doing things like this, my feathers are going to be really odd, right? These are not 45-degree angles. I need to make sure that I've got 45-degree angles coming into my spine. And what I want to do with my tall feather is kind of aim or focus or reach for that focal point, that center focal point. So I'm going to do a small feather and a tall feather and a small feather and a tall feather. And those tall feathers, I want them to kind of reach. And it's easier to do this not filling this curve up as at first. So go small. Don't try to make these fill all the way to the center of this curve. First, make sure that you start out with smaller feather. I think you'll be more pleased with the way that it looks. Okay, I'm gonna keep on a-trucking. So there's the center, making those feathers go in the inside of a curve. And so once you have this kind of down, let's see how far back I can undo, and maybe I'll make it bigger this time. Okay, that's as far back as it'll let me undo. So let me keep going, and I'm gonna make mine bigger this time. So I'm gonna try to reach the center. So I would start out with those smaller feathers where you're not trying to fill the space. And then you can make your feathers bigger to go around the spine. But I would still do the smaller and the taller and aim for that focal point. Smaller and taller, and aim your taller for that focal point. Okay, so thank goodness I can quilt a little bit better than I can draw, but that gives you a sense of it. Let's go over to the machine and play with it on the machine. So I've got my Millie here, and I'm going to, let's see, I'll go ahead and stitch my spine. So I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top, and I'm going to go ahead and do my little question mark spine. And then let me cut those threads where I started. And I'm gonna take a Sharpie now. We all know you don't use Sharpies on your quilt, right? But at least this way you'll be able to see it. Kelsey, can they see the Sharpie in the middle of the? Sort of. Let me move it back. Okay. So I'm kind of eyeballing where the focal point center of my curve is, and I would put some kind of removable, use chalk. Don't use a Sharpie, but a Sharpie, that way you can see. All right. So let me bring I pulled my bobbin thread out so I can move the camera over so you can see it. Okay, so let's get started here and let's put some feathers on that spine, headed up to the interior curve. So I'm going to start with a small and then a tall. And if you have trouble seeing, there are different feet that you can get for your long arm machine or your sit-down domestic. And it could be that a different foot will allow you to see a little bit better. All right, so the tall is going to aim for that focal point. So I got a small, a tall, a small, a tall, a small, a tall. All right, so that would be how you would fill it. And like I said, go smaller feathers first, and then start to work towards larger feathers that you could grow and actually fill that whole space in. But this one skill is going to take you a little time to kind of work through, but it's how you bridge the gap between doing a spine and doing a feathered wreath and doing a feathered heart. So this is where you start. All right, so hopefully that was helpful to you. Do we have any questions at all that came in about feathers? Because, feathers is a huge topic.
Not yet.
And, okay. And I always say there's a reason when you go to a quilt show and you look at all the classes that are being taught, there is a reason there's a bazillion classes on feathers. It is not a beginner thing. So it is something that's going to take you time. It's going to take practice. It's supposed to take practice. And there's joy in the practice. So find the joy in the practice. But also find your particular plume that works for you. It may not be the bump feather. It may be a different type of feather that you find more helpful. Or even just leaves. Leaves will also be helpful too. So any questions come in, Rachel? No? Okay. And if you do have any questions that come up for you, the Quilted Joy Clubhouse on Facebook, our Facebook group, is a wonderful place for you to post questions and what you're working on and photos of what you have in progress. And it's just a wonderful community full of fabulous quilters who are ready to lift you up and answer questions and be by your side. So I encourage you to post questions and photos in our Facebook group there at the Quilted Joy Clubhouse. All right, I want to thank our sponsor, APQS. APQS, we're using the APQS Millie here in the clubhouse today. And APQS makes all of their machines. They're handcrafted in Iowa, and they're loved the world over. And APQS machines all come with that industry-leading lifetime warranty. If you want more information about APQS machines, contact your local APQS store or your local APQS dealer. They'll be happy to help you and answer more questions about long arm quilting and get you going on your long arm adventure. So thank you, APQS, for all of your support. All right, so like I said, we are missing our customers that regularly come in here. So once a month, we normally have a guild that meets here live in person. And generally there's 25 to 30 folks who come, and we kind of enjoy and show off what we're working on and talk and chat and have a great time. And we haven't been able to do that now for months, and it's been really hard. We've really missed everybody. And so one of the gals who comes to that on a regular basis is Jane. And Jane is one of our very favorite people. And we talked Jane into letting us be nosy and poke around her studio. So we recorded this earlier for you so we can make sure that the signal and everything was good for you. So let's take a look and be nosy in Jane's studio. Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Angela. Welcome to Big Baby Farm.
Is that the name of your place?
Yes, because everybody's spoiled, and you will see that today.
That's fabulous. Okay, so tell us what city you're in.
I am in Waddy, Kentucky, which is kind of between Louisville and Lexington.
Okay. All right. So I can already see you have a modern quilting love for sure. I can tell that by
over your shoulder.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see your Big Baby Farm quilting studio.
Okay, because I am. All right, let me climb up here. First of all, I'll show you Big Baby Farm. So I'll go over here, and this is what I look out at when I am
Oh,
working. So
Mm.
here is my long arm room. This used to be a family room upstairs, and I took it.
okay.
So there's
And,
where my long arm
and
is.
Jane, hold the camera with your other hand. There you go. I was just seeing
Oh,
your.
that's worse. How's
I was
that?
just seeing your hand. Okay, we got it. All right,
All
and
right.
go slow because we're trying to the camera's trying to focus. So this is your room that you have your long arm machine in,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to look out over. You have a lot of natural light in there. That's wonderful.
Yes, I do.
And what size table is that?
This is the 10-foot table. That's what we could fit in here comfortably. And I don't quilt huge quilts, so it works out just fine.
It does. It does. And I see that batting stored underneath.
I did. We just did that a couple weeks ago, and it works really nice. Keeps it off the floor, so I enjoy that. And what I did was the bar that used to stretch in the front,
Uh-huh.
remember? I took it off, and that's what's down there, and it's just hanging.
All right. So I know you love rulers. Show me where you keep all of your machine quilting.
Oh, see, here comes the big baby part.
Yeah, okay.
So I have my Alex from IKEA. And I keep my rulers in there. And this is actually goes in a toolbox, but see, it prevents it from scooting around inside.
Yeah.
So I do. I have all of my rulers neatly stored and
Nice.
my supplies under there. And then I have another cabinet of them over there. And then, here's my stationary machine that I have. And there is another cabinet that I have.
And those are all the same ones from IKEA?
They are. They're the Alex kind.
So you enjoy those. So tell me, where did you get the non-slid stuff that you
I got it. You can get it online at Amazon, or you can get it at Lowe's. I went over to Lowe's and purchased it. I explained to them it's like shelf liner. You might be able to use shelf liner too.
But it's like something you would get to put in a toolbox.
Yeah, so that your wrenches aren't going all over the place.
Fabulous. All right. And so where do you piece? Do you piece in this room?
Oh no, Angela. As I took over the whole second floor except for the guest bedroom.
Did you?
Yes, I did. And here is my piecing room. So there's my domestic, and then my serger is over there. And then I'll go around over here. There's my design board.
Perfect.
And that is that insulation board that you can get at Lowe's. And then I covered it with fleece.
Perfect.
So it's kind of sizable.
Yeah.
And then let me see what else in here. Oh, let's see. I have a little ironing board I made.
What about your fabric? Where do you keep all your fabric?
So I keep my thread in here too. So I just used little boards and then put a piece of bead, like just a piece of bead board. I mean, what's that stuff called? You know, those round ones. Thank you. Yeah. So anyways, that's where and it's by weight. And then over here is my fabric. And it's sort of color coded, and it's messier than it probably should be, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, what are you doing there? Wait, what's that room?
I know. I told you I'm a big spoiled baby. So this is a bonus room that was connected to this bedroom. And this originally was my space. And I just slowly evolved into taking more and more. But I had 3 kids. And so we had big kitchen tables. And these are the old kitchen tables that I've made an ironing surface on top of one. The other one is a cutting board.
Wonderful.
And, one of the things I really like about this room, there's not a lot of natural light, which I don't like. But up here, these are LED panels, and they are fabulous for lighting. Really like that.
Yeah.
And also over here, you probably recognize this kind of thing that you have in your shop. This is called slat board.
Yeah.
And you can get this at like Lowe's or Home Depot. And we just put it up on the walls, and it's quite flexible. I can change it around because I changed my mind on everything
Oh, that
most
is
of the time.
fabulous. You have a lovely setup. My goodness.
I know, and my rulers are all there, and then over here was a naked wall, and
Uh-huh.
you can see the roof line comes down kind of low.
Yeah.
So we bought these pre-made cabinets and put Formica on top of them, and
Mm.
that's usually a disaster over there.
Yeah.
But as I was explaining to Angela, I'm having thumb surgery tomorrow, so I am trying to everything kind of got finished and put away. So
Lovely. All right. Well, can you? Oh, I see. You've got your bunny. Your
my
hopper.
bunny's up there,
Oh,
yes.
it looks so good.
Yep,
Looks so
it does.
good. All right. So turn the camera around so we can see your lovely smiling face.
All righty.
All right. So tell us 3 things. They don't have to be quilting related. 3 things that you'd recommend to your bestie right now. What are you into?
Well, as I have gotten older, my bones are brittle and my joints are falling apart. And my bestie, I would say, and I do to my besties, get some exercise. I could sit at my sewing machine all day long and love it, but I'm out 5 days a week trying to not continue to fall apart at the seams, so to speak. So that would be one of them.
Mhm.
Another one would be get a good pair of, I use garden gloves. They're really sticky and they help me hold my rulers on my long arm. And they also, when I work on my stationary machine, I can move that fabric around more easily.
Uh-huh.
And the third thing is really what quilting has brought me, which is the opportunity to learn something new. I try out different ways of quilting and different ways of sewing things together. And, there's so many resources on the web. And, I've been very fortunate to be able to take advantage of instructors that come to Louisville. And so I learn something new all the time because
Yeah.
it's not only your body that ages, it's also your brain. So I'm hopeful that will
Right.
help you stay younger.
Well, we are just so thankful that you're part of our quilting community, Jane. You add a lot of light and happiness and joy to our meetings and to our online group as well. So thank you for being a part of it.
Well, thank you. And I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Oh, and so if folks
Yes.
want to connect with you, where can they find you online, Jane?
I am on Instagram and my name is at Sweet Waddy Jane. Waddy is where I live. And I do all sorts of things. I do quilting and I do some gourd art. So there's a lot of things that are posted there.
Yeah. And ziplining too, I think, right?
I've zip lined, yes. I've dog sledded, yes. I try, as I said, I'm trying, Angela.
All right. Well, thanks, Jane. I'll see you later.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks again, Jane. I really enjoyed all of the lovely views out of your window of your gorgeous landscaping and gardens and flowers and everything that you get to look out on in your dream studio. So you are a lucky girl, and thank you so much for showing us around. Now, we did have some questions come in about feathers, so I did want to address some of those questions that came in. Rachel, what were some of those questions that we had come in?
Elisa asked, is there a way that you can go from doing outside to inside feathers with the question mark feathering?
So Elisa's asking if we can do both left and right sides all at the same time as we go up the spine. And yes, it's entirely possible. It is a little bit more advanced skill. So I would highly recommend when you're learning feathers to start at the bottom of the spine and go up and then either cut your threads or echo around the outside of the plume to return back to the bottom of the spine and do the other side going up. It's just a little bit harder to get used to doing left and then right and then left and then right as you grow up the spine. That's a little more difficult. What was another question that we had?
Another question came from Diane Palmerton. And
Hi,
that is,
Diane.
what is the best kind of foot to use to do
Diane
this?
asked about the best kind of foot. So it depends on kind of what else I'm doing in the rest of the quilt, but an open-toed hopping foot would just give you a little bit more visibility, especially for the bump feathers, where you come over and you kiss the top of the feather before and there's backtracking involved. It just allows you to see a little bit better. And then I would certainly go skinny, skinny, skinny thread, especially when you're learning. So right now we have a fatter thread. We have like a 35 weight thread on the machine, so you can see it at home home better on the computer, but I would go with a skinnier thread that matches your fabric. So there's lots of forgiveness built in as you're getting started with feathers, especially feathers on an inside curve. Any other questions about feathers?
Vicky Watkins asked, do you usually make your feathers larger than what?
Yeah. Okay, so Vicky, thanks for that question. So yeah, I made the feathers really small today, and I didn't fill them towards the inside of that curve because it's going to be easier when you're first starting to make smaller feathers. The bigger the feather, the more bratwurst they become. So keep them, think skinny thoughts. Keep them small, keep them skinny. That's a whole lot easier to learn. And then as you get more comfortable with doing that shape and the rhythm of that shape, you can start to swing out and make those feathers a little bit bigger. I wouldn't typically use on a quilt something this small because you're really dedicated to a lot of time to fill space if you go with feathers this small. So, use it to practice with and use it to kind of bridge the gap for learning. But then when you go to put it on a quilt, you will have had the experience. You can start to make your feathers larger so it doesn't take so stinking long to fill up a border. Any other questions, Rachel?
And one more from Karen Robinson, and she's asking, how would you suggest a left-handed person attack doing feathers?
Okay, Karen, so you're a lefty and I am a righty, and you're asking about how do you attack feathers based on your dominant hand. And of course, with a long arm machine, everybody's going to have to get used to making feathers towards the right, towards the left, upside down, right side up, to the east, to the west, like all directions. Our sit-down friends can actually rotate the quilt and get it in a more comfortable position, but a stand-up quilting machine, you're not going to do that typically. And so to practice with, because I'm right-handed, I did that question mark curve from going what would be in my dominant, so that I'm putting these feathers to the left. But for a lefty, I would suggest you just make that question mark curve to practice with in the opposite direction so that you're doing the opposite that I am. But you're going to have to get used to putting your curves, your inside feathers on a curve that goes to the left and a curve that goes to the right. So your question about left-handed, right-handed, it's the same thing. Right-handed people are going to have to get used to doing it more left-handed. It's more, though, about which side of your body, which hand is the dominant driver of the machine. So if you are left-handed, your left hand is going to be doing most of the work. It's going to be driving the bus. And your right hand is really going to be more just kind of as a rudder. So to kind of train your brain as you get used to that, I would hold onto the machine with your dominant hand. In that case, Karen, it's your left hand. And then open your palm up on your non-dominant hand and just use that and hold it against the handle. And it'll become a guide, and you're forcing your brain as you go around curves to just continue on with your dominant side and let it continue to drive the bus and not flipping back between both sides of your brain. You're only working on that dominant side of your brain. Okay, thank you for your questions. It helps me to know too, like what did I leave out and what further things do I want to include the next time I talk about feathers, because I talk about feathers a lot. All right, I want to talk to you about my favorite things. We've gotten a lot of great things here in the shop over the last couple months, and this one just sets my little heart afire. These are brightly blooming panels, and they are incredible. They're digitally printed, and they are 56 inches by 77 inches. And these are wonderful gifts as well as fabulous places to play. And these are by Moda. They're high quality, and they're absolutely gorgeous. Kelsey and I, we went to market in Houston back in the fall, and we saw these hanging, and it just brought us to a halt. They're really, really gorgeous. We have a few of them in stock, and we have more on order. So if you want one, go snag it. It's there in the quiltedjoy.com site. And they are beautiful panels, and they're quite large, 56 by 77. And they're wonderful negative space there to play and have fun, and you can work on your feathers, but let the panel do the hard work and be the focal point of the quilt, and then your quilting just kind of adds that icing on the cake. So Those are the brightly blooming panels. And I did want to thank, so many folks have reviewed us on Google, and it's one of the ways that other folks find us and other folks find the Clubhouse as well. So if you have a moment, it's one of the best ways that you can support a small business, because it just allows all the algorithms out there and the Google machine to decide who they're going to offer up when someone searches for a product or a service. So if you're looking for a way to help your small businesses that you love and are attached to, spend some time on Google and review them. That will help them tremendously, and it'll help us as well. So I read each one personally, and I thank you so much for the kind words, and I thank you so much for trusting us with your online orders and your business. I just really appreciate all of our customers. Okay, so in our Quilted Joy Clubhouse, each month I do a call out and I ask for folks to send in a photo of an unquilted quilt top so that I can show you, I can draw on the photo and show you how I would quilt it if it were my quilt. And so I got a lot of great submissions, and I hope you can go over and see in the Clubhouse all of the great ones that were submitted and kind of think to yourself which one kind of makes you think in a different way, which one kind of makes you see something, and maybe you can download that photo and draw on your own computer. So I've picked one to talk to you about today, and Faye, it is your quilt. Okay, so I have to say, Faye, I was a little like, one of the things that drew me to your quilt was the cutie pie over here on the right-hand side that is holding up, that's holding up this quilt. Wait, I gotta zoom over so you can see this little cutie pie. How adorable is he? His little arms are about as stretched as they could possibly be, and he's standing on top of the couch in his little tiptoes, trying his very hardest to get your quilt. It's just adorable. So there you go, Faye. We're going to talk about your quilt. So let me zoom out here so that we can see with our little cutie pie. So there's a lot of great geometry that's going on in her quilt. There's a lot of great movement that we can pull out. And what I want you to notice is those focal stars use a whole fabric, and it's a floral fabric. Let me zoom in so that you can see those a little bit better. So see that floral fabric here? That is going to be kind of what kicked me off as far as what I could do in this block here that looks like it's on point. But I don't think it is. I think it's all one single block, and when it comes together, it makes these secondary blocks. So pretty cool, cool design there, Faye. So let's look at what we could put in here. And so what I thought what would be cool in there was like a big floral design. So I want to show you one option for a big floral design. And let me just get up here a new screen. And by the way, I'm just using a free program called Paintbrush here on my Mac. And then I'm using, it's a Wacom tablet. It's a graphics tablet, so it turns my mouse into a pen, and then I draw on it's a glorified mouse pad, and it just allows me to draw a little bit more easily. Okay, so I want to do like a hydrangea blossom, so a big blossom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into a tight curl. Just like that. So I'm going to drop into a tight curl. And now I'm going to start putting petals on them. But the petals are 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And literally that is going on in my head. If I lose track, I will mess up. Okay, so now I need to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And there is no wrong way to do this. You'll notice they aren't all the same, just like flower petals aren't all the same. But this repetitive echoing really helps the eye. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And so what I would do, Faye, is I would just fill that hole, and it looks like it's a pretty decent size block. Like I'm guessing it's about a 12-inch center, and I would fill in until I reached the edges of that block so that I get my big hydrangea blossom in each of those in each of those blocks. So let's go over and let's look at, I'm going to go back to this one. So what I would do here is I'm just going to drop in. I could drop in on my magic portals of where I could drop in. And let me actually change my color to something much brighter so you can see a little bit better. So I can drop in with my hydrangea blossoms. This is a good spot. This, 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 or this. Yeah? So I'm going to choose to drop in right here for now. And I want to bring I think I need to bring my stroke down one. Okay, so I'm going to drop in with that curl. Is that good? Do I need to zoom in at all?
I think it's okay.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Echoes are always a really good way to kind of fool the eye into forgiving changes. And this is an especially nice design for filling in space and making a big kind of blossom. And if I don't have room for the 1, 2, 3, I can also just echo, echo, echo. And I need to fill in the space up here. So I'm going to just keep echoing, 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 and that's where I entered. So I'm going to put a hydrangea blossom in each of these larger stars, and I want to deal with these little star points too. So I told you I entered right here, yeah? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick out into just a little curve, 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 and right here I'm going to go straight out to this point. And the reason I'm going to go straight out to this point right here for the next door, the secondary block, is that it'll give me a little entry point, a little portal to where I could enter this quilt if I needed to, this block if I needed to. So I'm always kind of trying to think about how I'm going to touch a neighbor block to give me an entry point should I need it, to reduce the number of stops and starts that I have. I'm going to go straight down, curve, 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 straight, straight, curve, curve. And I'm just going to work my way around the block. And so at this point, I'm not quite thinking about how I'm going to quilt all the way across the quilt. So I'm not thinking about all the way across the quilt. I'm really kind of just thinking about opening doors, opening portals that I'll kind of figure out how I'm going to travel next. But I'm trying to just work out the design of what is going to look nice in this block and then what I'm going to do in the secondary block. And then I can start to think about when I have all these portals open, how I'm going to connect everything so that I have a continuous path. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Faye. So I'm going to go to number 2. Okay, so there we go. And I zoomed in a little bit because, it's a big quilt, Faye. So hopefully you can see. So I put that hydrangea blossom in each of the blocks, and I also did the little kind of frame around it that gave me portals. So then I started thinking about this secondary block. And Faye, I got some bad news for you. And I didn't even see it until I started working and zooming in. All right, this patch right here, Faye. See him? He's in backwards. Isn't that always the way? Like you get the whole dang thing put together and then you stand back and there's one little guy laughing at you. So Faye, you might want to like pick him out and rotate him. I didn't even notice it until I zoomed way in, but there he was laughing. So take a look at him. But let's talk about this secondary block. And one of the things that I loved about the secondary block, Faye, is how it kind of frames out. So this hydrangea blossom is so curvy and wonderful, but how this would give me an opportunity to bring in some straight lines. So the first thing I started to think about was if I were to put in, and this wouldn't be the path that I would take, but this is how I started thinking about it, and then put in a parallel line and a parallel line. And what's great about the pattern is there's a seam right here. Right? So when I'm quilting, I can go touch that seam and head back up at a right angle. So it kind of does a little bit of the marking for me. So I liked that idea and I thought, well, I really kind of want to mimic that in this interior one. So I thought, okay, if I can just go and do the same thing in here, that would be kind of cool. And what if I did a little one right in the center? Okay, so I certainly don't want to stop and break my threads for all of those little guys. So I need a way to travel. I need a way to kind of hide my path so I don't have to do a lot of starts and a lot of stops. And so what I thought about doing was I could actually do this right angle, travel up the ditch, do this right angle, and then do a little wormy line. It's like a little back and forth wiggle line to fill in that space and kind of push that space back. And then I can travel up the ditch to this point where I can do a number of things. I could dip into the center, which is what I would typically do because I want to do what I come to when I first come to it so that if I forget when I come to it next as I'm traveling around the block, I can always hit it later. So for this interior block, I would go ahead now and stitch that diamond, that square, but I would have marked, this is the only thing I'm going to have to mark is a center square, so that when I go in and I fill it with those little wormy lines, I know when I touch that mark, I can go ahead and stitch that smaller square, and then wormy line, 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 and I end up where I started. And from here, I'm just going to go up to that portal. So see, that portal is where I could connect and drop into a neighboring block should I need it. So I'm going to go up here, and while I'm here, I'm going to think about this black area. I'm not going to do it yet, but I'm keeping in mind this black frame is going to need something, and right here is the place where I could pop out and deal with this black area. But I'm not going to do it right this second because I want to keep going so that you get a clear picture of this secondary block. So I'm going to go straight back, travel up the ditch, wormy line, wormy line, wormy line, wormy line, wormy line, wormy line, wormy line. All right, and keep on. And by using that wormy line, I'm sure there's an official word for it, but we'll call it wormy line. I've heard it called refrigerator coils, matchsticks. We're going to call it wormy line. So there's my block. Not bad, right? Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. One is I thought, all right, so I need to deal with this black area when I hit those portals right there. So what could I do? And what I came up with was just a curl and a twist. And a curl and a twist. All right, let me do it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because it might be easier for you to see and easier for me to draw. So a curl and a twist. And a curl and a twist. And so I would do that each time I came out to this point. That's when I would do that curl and a twist. And a curl. Ooh, I moved the thing. All right, curl and a twist. And then head back. All right, so I'm really liking that. Let me zoom back out. All right, and let me show you what this looks like with all of those together. Okay, so there's those blocks that we talked about. One thing that occurred to me when I was doing this, because then I started thinking about this next area, these squares here, and what I was going to do in those squares there, and I didn't have a portal, so let me go back. Let me show you where I was missing a portal. So see, I don't have a way to get here. Like this could be a portal, yeah? And perhaps if I go all the way out with that little twirl, I could get to this point and create a portal for myself. But it'd be better if I had a nicer portal to take advantage of. And so I thought, well, you know, when I come up for this line, let me zoom in here so you can see a little better. When I come up for this line, if I just go out, suddenly I've created a portal where now I can drop into this space. And I thought, well, this space, what if I just mimicked that square and a square design that I had in the interior of this block? That would make sense. And then maybe do a second one in there. So if I do that, what it's going to require is that I have this little portal on all four corners. And this little line here is going to be gone over twice. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to go down. So I'm going to go up, square and a square, echo, back down. So when I'm traveling over, make my portal, make my square, echo, go back in and complete wormy, 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 So I hope you see that path, okay? So that is adding, sometimes you have to add a little line or a portal there to get to the next place. And then I'm not sure exactly what size this is, so let me go to show you. I've got all the portals here. So there's all the little portals I've got drawn in. Yeah, and then let me show you on this one. So here I've got the little portals, and then I've got those square into squares with echoes. But I wasn't quite sure, I'm gonna zoom in, I wasn't quite sure exactly how much space this flying goose is right here, and if he needed extra stitching. So what I did is when I reached the top of that square into square, I just went up and back and up and back. So that has 2 lines of stitching on it. And that way it'll actually add a little, it actually lines up with, let me change my color maybe, and that might help show you what I'm lining up with. So that line will line up, right, with this line, this piecing line of this side of your block, and it'll add a lot of energy and structure to your quilt. So it may not need it, but it was a good way once you reach the top of this to go ahead and go up and down and up and down and then head on. Up and down and up and down and then head on. All right, so let's look at the final version here, Faye. So there you go. There's what I did, Faye, for your cutie pie. You can see those little curls and twirls at the points of all of those secondary blocks, and you can see the structure that that gives you. And then have fun with those hydrangea blossoms. That's a great place to kind of play and make them, you know, their own unique thing on each of those blocks. So I hope that you enjoyed that. No pressure, Faye. You do what you want. It's your quilt. But if it were my quilt, that's how I would quilt it. And so when you do get it quilted, Faye, put it up in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse so we can see what you came up with. And like I said, don't think you have to follow my lead. You do your own thing. And I would love to see what you come up with. So do join us in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse. And next time I ask for a picture of a quilt to use in the show, then you can submit yours. Okay, so next month, we are going to be still talking about feathers. We're going to be talking about how to fit feathers in a square and the considerations you need to make when you fit it in a square. We've talked about the inside of a curve. We talked about the outside of a curve. Let's talk about how to fill a square. And that'll be next month on June the 3rd at 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Central. So find your time zone. We'll be doing it live here, both in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse and on YouTube at 1 o'clock Eastern. And do join us on our social pages. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have our Facebook group. And we also have Instagram, where I typically post a little more personal photos. So you can head over to Instagram and check those out. And then, of course, our YouTube channel has lots of tutorials and fun things for you. So get a chance. Please do review us on Google. We really appreciate the time that you take to do that. And we will see you in the Clubhouse. And thank you so much for the time you spent with me today. It was great to see you. Thanks. Bye-bye.